Fede Alvarez is not resting on Romulus' laurels, and let me just confirm that the sequel is happening. And why not, especially when the first movie was successful. This time around, director Alvarez is treating the next Alien movie as an opportunity rather than a checklist. He said he wants to earn the sequel. This director's grounded mindset should bode well for the quality of Alien Romulus 2, and you and I can anticipate a film that isn't infected with executive and studio interferences, but crafted with passion and thoughtfulness. I mean, this even showed in Romulus, and it proved that Alvarez was a fanboy. And in this video, we're gonna explore everything we know about Alien Romulus 2, which, by the way, is just a working title as of now, and I'll take you through the juiciest details, including the film's story, cast, and possible release date. But before I begin, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons. Those 2 small clicks from you will help us tremendously in bringing you more of these marvelous videos. And now, let's begin. Story and plot details. At the end of Alien Romulus, heroine Rain Carradine and her synthetic brother Andy entered cryosleep aboard the ship Corbellin 4, setting course for the paradise-like planet Yavaga 3. Alien Romulus 2 will pick up with their journey to this idyllic destination, but Alvarez has hinted that the world awaiting them may not be the utopia they imagine. In fact, he teased that Yavaga 3 could turn out to be a terrible place that they think is great and fantasize about. So there's gonna be a dramatic subversion of Rain's hopeful vision from the first film. Instead of a safe haven, the so-called paradise might hide dangers or dystopian realities that will challenge the survivors in unexpected ways. Yavaga 3 was described as a fully terraformed world, unaffiliated with Weyland-Yutani, and even hostile to synthetic life, which means that Andy wouldn't be welcome there. All these elements will lead to high tension when Rain and Andy arrive, and the planet's inhabitants or environment, or both, might not greet them kindly, and the pair could find themselves in deeper trouble despite thinking they had escaped the nightmare. Alvarez and his team started spitballing ideas as soon as the filming of Romulus wrapped up, and it didn't take them long to realize, oh, that sounds like a sequel. One thing Fede Alvarez is making clear is that the sequel will steer the franchise into uncharted waters. Alien Romulus paid homage to familiar series beats like enclosed space terror similar to the original Alien, with a touch of James Cameron's Alien-style action. But having checked all of the boxes of things he wanted to see in one film, Alvarez intends to do something radically new. Wherever we go now, we can go into uncharted waters, he said, emphasizing that the follow-up will venture to places in the Alien universe we've never seen before. And this makes total sense, you know? I mean, think about it. The only reason Jurassic World Rebirth didn't do as well as the original few films is because we're seeing more of the same in every movie, and dinos do not make us feel scared anymore. With Alien Earth, we're seeing more of the xenomorph, and if the trend continues, we may develop xenomorph fatigue as well, much like the superhero fatigue or the dinosaur fatigue. So the idea is to take characters we now know and love, like Rain and Andy, and drop them into a setting that's entirely fresh for the franchise. Alvarez teased that audiences will discover things you've never seen before in an Alien movie. This bold approach suggests that Romulus 2 won't simply rehash xenomorph outbreaks in another derelict spaceship or colony. Instead, it can introduce new environments, creatures, or sci-fi concepts that expand the lore. It's a confident promise that the film will deliver novelty, and whether that means exploring a different kind of threat on Yavaga 3, getting into engineer mysteries, or crossing over with elements outside standard Alien canon, I'm confident that the director will do his best and surprise us again. One of the most important plot threads from Alien Romulus, and one that's likely to play a major role in the sequel, is the black goo pathogen, also called Prometheus fire. During the events on the Romulus station, Rain and Andy managed to secure several vials of this dangerous bioweapon, synthesized from xenomorph material. In the finale, Rain loads Andy with the remaining black goo onto their ship as they flee. Notably, the film ends with Rain still having at least one vial of the black liquid on board the Corbellin 4, as they head toward Yavaga 3. Why is that important? Because Prometheus and Alien Covenant showed us just how catastrophic this substance can be. In Covenant, the android David unleashes the pathogen on the engineer homeworld, effectively exterminating its inhabitants in one apocalyptic strike. If Rain and Andy unwittingly bring the black goo to a populated paradise planet, the results could be similarly disastrous. In fact, their arrival might mirror what David did. Rain and Andy's introduction of the black goo to Yavaga 3 could lead to the world's destruction, intentionally or not, thus repeating the tragic pattern from Covenant. Alvarez's team has certainly set up this possibility. The peaceful colonists or creatures of Yavaga 3 have no idea what's coming, and our protagonists themselves may not fully understand the evil Pandora's box they carry. We can also expect more overt connections to the lore of Prometheus and Covenant. The first Romulus already referenced Weyland-Yutani's experiments with the original xenomorph and the engineer bioweapon. Going forward, the black goo might not only threaten to unleash new monstrosities on Yavaga 3, but also tie into the broader mythos, perhaps revealing more about the engineers or leading to the creation of new hybrid creatures, just as we saw with the offspring in Romulus. Confirmed cast returns. The most important aspect of Alien Romulus was the bond between its two survivors, and the good news is that both actors are on board to continue that story. Kaylee Spaney will return as Rain Carradine, the resourceful heroine who emerged as the film's Ripley-esque figure, and David Johnson will be back as her android companion and brother-in-arms, Andy. Their characters' sibling-like dynamic of a human and a synthetic who grow up together provided an emotional core amid the carnage, so it's no surprise the studio is eager to reunite them. In fact, 20th Century Studios president Steve Asbell specifically highlighted Rain and Andy as the key to the sequel. The two survivors, Rain and Andy, played by Kaylee Spaney and David Johnson, were real highlights of the film, Asbell said. He fell in love with both characters and noted that any follow-up would naturally focus on them. I always think, wow, where do people see them go next? We know there's going to be aliens, great horror set pieces, but I want to see what their story is. This confirmation not only assures fans that Spaney and Johnson will reprise their roles, but it also implies that the sequel will be very much their story, continuing Rain and Andy's arc as they face new perils on Yavaga 3, and perhaps beyond. The supporting cast of Romulus featured other young actors, like Isabella Merced, Archie Renal, etc., but given that Rain and Andy were the only ones left alive, aside from a certain Easter egg cameo in a shuttle, we can assume the sequel will introduce a largely new cast of characters around the returning duo. Andy ended the first film damaged and in need of repair, and Rain vowed to fix him, so the question we need to ask is, how will their bond be tested by the revelations that await on Yavaga 3? Can Rain trust Andy if the planet outlaws synthetics? Potential Predator crossover. Could the next Alien installment also resurrect the Predator? Rumors are swirling that yes, a Yautja may make a surprise appearance in Alien Romulus 2. Entertainment journalist Jeff Snyder sparked excitement in April 2025 by reporting he's heard a Predator will show up in the sequel script. This unconfirmed scoop immediately had us fans buzzing about a stealth crossover, essentially a backdoor Alien vs. Predator event. And since Predator Badlands is already doing that, seeing a Predator in Romulus 2 would not really be surprising. Interestingly, Fede Alvarez himself has mused about exactly this kind of scenario. Earlier in the year, Alvarez spoke about being open to an AVP crossover done in a clever way, when he said, and I quote, "The best AVP will be the one that you don't know is an AVP until the other guy shows up," he told one interviewer. He described an idea where you think you're watching a standalone Predator movie, and suddenly xenomorphs appear, or vice versa. In his words, once you slap AVP in the title, it spoils the surprise, so he'd love a crossover that sneaks up on the audience. Alvarez even floated the idea of co-directing an Alien vs. Predator project with Dan Trachtenberg, director of 2022's Prey, and each filmmaker would handle one half until the stories collide. All of this indicates that Alvarez has cross-franchise ideas on his mind. While nothing is officially confirmed, the timing couldn't be better. Disney, which owns 20th Century Studios, has been laying groundwork for a shared Alien Predator universe. For example, the recent Predator Badlands film explicitly ties into Alien lore. Its teaser trailer revealed that Elle Fanning's character, Thea, is a Weyland-Yutani android, establishing that the infamous corporation, and by extension Xenomorph Era tech, exists in the Predator timeline. This kind of Easter egg is no coincidence. The brass at 20th Century hinted that an Alien-Predator crossover is in consideration for the future. If a Predator does appear in Romulus 2, it could be a cameo or a small role integrated into the plot on Yavaga 3. Perhaps a lone Yautja is drawn to a new Xenomorph outbreak, if the black goo causes one. Or Rain and Andy find themselves caught in a three-way battle between xenomorphs and a galaxy's deadliest hunter. Alvarez wants the Predator to arrive quote-unquote 5 minutes late to the Romulus Station massacre, only to find the xenomorph chaos has already happened but not concluded. Maybe the sequel will fulfill that scenario in a new context. Keep in mind, Ridley Scott still oversees the Alien franchise as a producer, and he's historically not a fan of mixing the lore. But if Disney is on board and Alvarez has a clever plan, we might just see a cloaked Predator lurking in the shadows of Romulus 2. Production timeline and filming schedule. Despite only releasing in 2024, Romulus will likely have its follow-up filming by the end of 2025, if all goes according to plan. In fact, Alvarez revealed that pre-production was quietly underway as of early 2025. By June 2025, he confirmed on the Maria Nocturna podcast that the team aims to begin shooting in October 2025. This aggressive schedule means the script writing and design phases kicked off almost immediately after the film's first success. Alvarez and his co-writer Rodo Sayagues were already busy writing the sequel script in the first half of the year. The director was optimistic that cameras would roll by fall, and indications point to that becoming a reality. When asked if the rumors of a late 2025 production start were true, actor David Johnson grinned and said, "I can't share very much, but I will say I don't think you're far off. Your sources have something to them." In other words, yes, he all but confirmed that the sequel is gearing up to shoot immediately. Johnson's hint aligns perfectly with Alvarez's stated target of October. To put this in perspective, a fall 2025 start for filming could position Alien Romulus 2 for a release as early as late 2026, or sometime in 2027. That's a remarkably quick turnaround, just about 2 years after the first film, considering the gap between recent Alien entries has typically been much longer. Alvarez acknowledged that historically the franchise waited much longer between installments. If you think about Alien and Aliens, there's 7 years between them, he noted, but the landscape is different now. Disney and 20th Century Studios are clearly confident enough to fast-track production, buoyed by Romulus' success. The accelerated timeline became possible after Romulus exceeded expectations, both creatively and financially, giving the studio the impetus to strike while the iron is hot. By February 2025, it was reported that Alvarez's next project would indeed be the Romulus sequel, and that he hoped to shoot within a year. This appears to be coming true. Box office success driving the sequel. Why exactly is Romulus 2 being fast-tracked? Follow the money. The film's first box office haul practically demanded a sequel. Alien Romulus earned a whopping $350 million worldwide, against a modest $80 million budget. In franchise terms, that makes it the second highest grossing Alien film ever, behind only Ridley Scott's Prometheus from 2012. It even outperformed the last installment, Alien Covenant, by well over $100 million. This success was somewhat unexpected, considering Romulus was originally considered as a Hulu streaming release, but positive early buzz led 20th Century Studios to give it a full theatrical run, which was a gamble that paid off hugely. The movie not only topped the domestic box office on its opening weekend, it had strong legs in subsequent weeks, especially overseas. In fact, about 70% of Romulus' total gross came from international markets, with China alone contributing roughly a third of the earnings. It became China's second biggest Hollywood release of 2024, behind only Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire, underlining the global appetite for xenomorph scares. Romulus also sets an IMAX horror record. At one point, it was noted as the most successful horror film in IMAX history, thanks to audiences flocking to see those dark, claustrophobic sequences on the biggest screen possible. All of this financial success created a perfect environment to greenlight a sequel at lightning speed. There was simply no way Disney would leave a brand new hit uncapitalized. Internally, the conversation shifted from "should we do a sequel" to "how soon can we have it ready?" And to their credit, Alvarez and the creative team were equally enthusiastic. They had ideas brewing, as I mentioned earlier, and the box office numbers gave them the leverage to pursue those ideas. 20th Century Studios' Steve Asbell essentially said Romulus blew past even their lofty expectations. With $350 million in the bank, a follow-up became a top priority among the multiple Alien and Predator projects on Disney's slate. It's rare for a horror-centric Alien film to approach Marvel-level grosses, and this proved the franchise still has huge draw. Moreover, Romulus was both a commercial and critical win, with around 80% on Rotten Tomatoes, a B+ cinema score from audiences. So the brand's reputation is riding high, which is the kind of momentum the studio surely wants to maintain. From a narrative standpoint, the ending of Romulus was intentionally left open, which further encouraged audiences to anticipate a sequel. When viewers know more story is possible, they're likely to show up for the next chapter. The ticket sales validated this approach. In essence, Alien Romulus performed like a blockbuster, so the studio is treating it like one by expediting Romulus 2 in roughly the same 2 to 3 year turnaround window they might for a superhero tentpole. Title and franchise context and expansion. One thing we know about the sequel is that it won't be titled, so don't expect it to be called Alien Remus. Given the first film's name Romulus, some joke that a follow-up might cheekily be named after Romulus' twin from Roman myth. However, Alvarez shot down that notion with a laugh. Romulus is the murderous one, he pointed out. Romulus, in legend, killed his brother Remus to found the city of Rome. So to make a sequel about the one who gets killed and call it Remus, that story doesn't feel like it's going to be aggressive enough for the Alien franchise. Alvarez said, In other words, Remus doesn't quite scream terrifying xenomorph adventure. That quip aside, the actual title for Romulus 2 remains under wraps. It may end up with a subtitle or a completely different codename. Romulus itself was a working title that made it to the end. The important takeaway is that Alvarez intends the sequel's identity to align with the series' fierce tone, likely something that conveys danger and evolution rather than a sibling reference. Until an official title is announced, everyone will likely keep calling it Romulus 2. While the movie's title is TBD, its place in the wider Alien franchise is becoming clearer. The sequel is being developed amid a renaissance of the Alien universe across multiple platforms. Notably, 2025 saw the release of Alien Earth, the first ever Alien television series, which premiered on FX and Hulu on August 12, 2025. The series, created by Noah Hawley, is set in the year 2120, placing it 2 years before the original 1979 Alien film's events, which occurred in 2122. Alien Earth serves as a prequel exploring a world, in fact our world, Earth, that the xenomorphs have never touched in the films. It dives into corporate dystopia, synthetic life, and presumably leads toward the conditions that will eventually allow an alien infestation. The show's early reception has been strong with high critical scores, and it continues the franchise tradition of strong female protagonists. In this case, a character named Wendy who is a human consciousness in a synthetic body. The arrival of a prestige TV series parallel to the films indicates that Disney is fully committed to expanding the Alien lore. What does this mean for the sequel? For one, there may be synergy, or at least thematic resonance between Alien Earth and Romulus 2. They're set roughly 58 years apart. The series in 2120, Romulus films in the late 2170s timeline. So direct story crossover is unlikely. However, the expanded universe approach allows the franchise to cover more ground. From earthbound tales of corporate machinations to far-flung planets like Yavaga 3, all under the cohesive umbrella of the Alien mythology. This multi-pronged expansion echoes what Disney has done with brands like Marvel and Star Wars, and now it's happening with Alien. Fans will recall that after Alien Covenant from 2017, the series' future was uncertain until Disney acquired Fox. Now, with Romulus succeeding, the confidence is back. We're witnessing an era where you could have an Alien movie in theaters and an Alien series streaming at the same time, which was an unthinkable bounty a decade ago. The Romulus sequel will likely acknowledge this broader context in subtle ways. For example, by introducing Easter eggs or lore details that align with what the show establishes about the universe in 2120. However, Alvarez will keep the film self-contained enough for those who just follow the movies. Director's cautious approach. Despite the rush of excitement and the corporate go-ahead to make a sequel, Fede Alvarez is approaching Romulus 2 with measured care. The filmmaker is acutely aware of the pitfalls of sequelitis. The mistake usually with sequels is to make them because you can, and because of the success of Romulus, we definitely can make a sequel, Alvarez said, and then he went on to add, but I wouldn't do it unless we have a really good idea for it, something that's worthy of the title. In other words, just because another Alien movie is financially and logistically possible doesn't automatically justify its existence. Alvarez insists that story comes first. This ethos is reassuring to fans who might worry that a sequel made under Disney's watch could prioritize action or franchise building over the franchise's horror and storytelling roots. Alvarez has repeatedly stressed that any new installment must earn its place and respect the franchise's legacy. Producer Michael Pruss seconded this sentiment when he mentioned that the team was in a careful brainstorming phase early on, wanting to ensure any new film aligns with Alien's legacy and isn't rushed out with a half-baked script. Given some recent sci-fi sequels have faltered by not having a solid narrative, Alvarez is determined not to fall into that trap. This cautious approach manifested in Alvarez and Sayaguez basically brainstorming a sequel for fun at first, as he described with the Yavaga 3 thought experiment, and only proceeding once they felt there was a worthwhile story to tell. Even now that the sequel is greenlit, Alvarez isn't spilling all the details, likely because he's refining them. He's confirmed he's excited and working on cracking the sequel with his co-writer, but he's also implied that if the story ideas hadn't lived up to expectations, he would have walked away despite Romulus' success. It's a humble stance that shows respect for the Alien series, which has seen its share of uneven sequels in the past. By saying that he wants something worthy of the title, Alvarez signals that he knows he's playing in a cherished sandbox and aims to deliver a film that can stand proudly alongside the best of Alien. He even referenced how James Cameron's Aliens came 7 years after Alien and managed to be both the original and a fresh departure. And that's the kind of bar he's setting for himself. Another aspect of Alvarez's approach is balancing fan service with innovation. With Romulus, he checks certain boxes: facehuggers, claustrophobic vents, a strong female lead, etc., as a way of proving his bona fides to fans and making Alien scary again. Now he has earned the freedom to take risks, But even as he ventures into the so-called uncharted waters, he's cautious not to lose what makes an Alien film an Alien film. So we can very well expect the sequel to still deliver the intense horror set pieces and slimy creature feature elements that audiences crave. Alvarez knows these are obligatory. He mentions, "We know there's going to be aliens, great horror set pieces," when imagining the sequel. His task is to integrate those into a story that doesn't feel derivative. It's a challenging tightrope walk. Be different enough to justify itself, yet familiar enough to feel like Alien. If anyone's up to it, it's Alvarez, who managed a similar feat with Evil Dead. That's all in this one, guys. See you around. And if you liked our content, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.